Ganapataye Namaha. Today I want to bring forth you Vedism and Brahmanism in detail way. Prayer. Vyasaya Vishnurupaya Vyasarupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidhaye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha. The somewhat imprecise terms Vedism and Brahmanism refer to those forms of Hinduism that revolve primarily around the mythic vision and ritual ideologies presented by the Vedas. These terms are classifications that have been used by historians to categorize in a typological manner a variety of religious beliefs and practices in ancient and contemporary South Asia. Vedic and Brahmanic religious sensibilities are thereby distinguished from agamic, tantric, and sectarian forms of Hinduism, which look to a variety of non-Vedic texts as the source of religious authority. Vedism is older than Brahmanism, which developed from and remains true to the Vedic worldwide, but accommodated and remolded the religious ideas and practices of non-Vedic South Asian traditions. Vedism applies more specifically to the religious ideas and expressions of the Indian branch of Indo-Europeans who gradually entered the valley of the Indus River in successive waves in the second millennium BC. These communities regard as sacred and authoritative text only those orally transmitted collections of poetic hymns, ritual instructions, Brahmanas, and some of the early philosophical speculations of the Vedic literary corpus. Together, these works are said to constitute sacred knowledge and are known as Shruti, revealed truth. Brahmanism developed as the Vedic Indians moved further into a subcontinent to settle in the regions denuded by the Ganges River and then southward to the tip of India. It is loosely known as Brahmanism because of the religious and legal importance it places on the Brahmana class of society. Brahmanism takes as sacred truth, in addition to the Veda, various law books, mythic epics, and a wide range of non-Vedic myths recounted in the Puranas. These texts, the earliest of which may date to the second part of the first millennium BC, and the lattermost of which to the medieval period, are known as Smriti, remembered truth. Both Vedism and Brahmanism then accept the Vedas as sacred. The difference between the two is that Brahmanism is also includes doctrines and mythic themes that do not specifically derive from the Vedas and therefore is ideologically more inclusive than Vedism. Some of these ideas find expression in various ritual practices such as temple worship and the domestic ceremony known as puja, in the notion of a society arranged according to vocational function and stage of life in meditation and renunciatory practices. In vegetarianism and reverence for the cow, in the importance of the teacher for transmitting the tradition, and in other non Vedic themes that play important parts in Hindu religious life and thought. Textual corpus. The collection of metric and prose texts that form the Veda is by far the largest single documentary source of archaic Indo-European religious thought. At the same time, however, this collection amply documents a particular line of intellectual development that went far beyond its archaic beginnings and gave the Veda its pivotal but never undisputed place in Indian religion and philosophy. Though no definite dates can be assigned to the Veda or any of its parts, some of its materials, especially in the metrical texts, may be dated back to the 12th century BC or even earlier, when the later Indo-Aryans were still in direct contact with the Iranian branch of the Indo-European peoples. This common Indo-Iranian period is attested by linguistic lexical, formulaic, and cultic similarities between the Veda and the Avesta. The formation of the Veda as currently known extended over the first half of the last millennium BC, bearing witness to a gradual move from the northwest of the subcontinent, the upper Indus area, where the Rigveda had its original home, to the watershed between the Indus and Ganges begins and into Ganges plain. This movement is epitomized in the story of the sacrificial fire, which was forced by means of a ritual formula to come out of the mouth of the legendary sacrificer Vaidega Matava. The fire then relentlessly rolled eastward from the Saraswati River in the west to the southern, the boundary river of Videha in the caste, and finally was established even beyond that boundary. Bengal, however, remained, as far as the Veda is concerned, a barbarian country. Apart from its antiquity, the most striking features of the Veda are its rigid codification and internal organization, as well as its faithful oral transmission along specialized Brahmins up to the present day. Although no decisive arguments can be adduced, the codification of the Veda may date from the middle of the first millennium BC. During the second half of that millennium, further ancillary texts were added to the corpus organization of the Veda. The primary principle of the internal organization of the Vedic corpus is strictly ritualistic, the text being arranged to their function with regard to the sacrificial ritual. The initial textual layer consists of formulas, both metrical and in prose, to accompany the ritual acts and descriptions of the ritual. The latter are thus differentiated in rules regulating the ritual and in explanation or discussion. Though this primary division gives no special place to the Upanishads, the speculative extension of the Brahmana texts, it clearly illustrates the ritualistic divide between karma or act and mantra or formula. The repositories of the mantras are known as the Samhitas, first collected in the Rigveda or Veda of stanzas. Though the time of its final compilation may not greatly differ from the period of the Brahmanas. The Rigveda contains, generally speaking, the oldest materials. The exposition of the ritual in the Brahmanas provides the second layer. The third layer is formed by the Aranyakas and the Upanishads. They are attached to the Brahmanas and are composed in the same style. The Aranyakas, which derive their name from their having to be studied outdoors in the wilderness because of their supposedly dangerous or secret nature, deal with particular parts of the ritual. The Upanishads start from and often refer to the ritual, but their meta-ritualistic content goes beyond and even supersedes it. The Kalpa Sutras belong to the six Vedangas, ancillary branches of knowledge meant to explain the Veda and to sustain its preservation. In addition to the Kalpa, the system of the ritual rules, these branches of knowledge are Siksha, Chandas, Vyakarana, Nirukta, and Jyotisha. While the systematic collaboration and standardization of Kalpa has the rationalistic trappings that qualify it as a pre-scientific science, astronomy, and especially grammar developed into full-fledged sciences independent of the Veda. The party chronological division in Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, and Kalpasutras is joined by a second equally ritualistic principle of organization running vertically through the successive layers. This division corresponds to the four priestly functions in the performance of the Soma Yajna. That is, the functions of the Hotru mean the reciter, the Udgatru mean chanter, the Advaryu officiating priest, who is in charge of the ritual acts and so of the overall proceedings, and the Brahmana, who acts as a mainly silent overseer and corrects possible mistakes in the performance of the ritual. To each of these four functions, a separate Veda is assigned, consisting of its own Samhita, Brahmana, and Kalpa Sutra. Thus, the Hotrus Veda is Rig Veda, from which the invitatory and offering stanzas as well as the longer recitations are taken. The Samaveda cites the text of Rig Veda and their melodies that are to be chanted by Udgatru. The Advaryu operates with the Yajurveda or Veda of the formulas. These formulas are defined as non-Rigvedic, although the Samhita contains many Rigvedic mantras as well. Finally, the Brahman relies, at least in theory, on the Atharva Veda, but because of his observing function, he should also be conversant with the other three Vedas. There are then four Vedas. Tradition, however, emphasizes the triple Veda, that is Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda. The Atharva Veda was added as a fourth Veda. As regards the other three Vedas is somewhat puzzling. The name of a legendary priest and his descendants, Atharvan, is related to the old Iranian Atharvan or fire priest, but does not refer to a specific priestly function in Vedic ritual. The relationship of Atharva Veda with the Shrauta ritual is a slight one. The connection with the Brahmanas function is made no earlier than in the comparatively late Brahmana of the Atharva Veda. With the Shrauta ritualistic is a slight one. The connection with the Brahmana's function is made no earlier than in the comparatively late Brahmana of the Atharva Veda. The contents of the Samhita appear to be related to special rites for promoting well-being, for activity of the Purohita, rather than to a Brahmana's function in the Shrauta ritual. This seems also to be underlined by the fact that Atharva Veda's Grihya Sutra has priority over its Shrauta Sutra in both age and importance. Although the Atharva Veda's codification, patterned after the Triple Veda, is comparatively late, this does not mean that its contents are equally late in origin. Thus, the so-called rice dish sacrifice, though recast to parallel the Soma sacrifice, may well have ancient roots. The Savayajna gives prominence to the sacrificial meal, which in the Shrauta ritual is reduced to a minimum. Generally speaking, it would seem that the Atharva Veda became a repository of rites and incarnation for which the fully developed Shrauta system of ritual had no place anymore, such as, for example, the exaltation of the Vratya, the warrior, sacrificer to whom the 15th book of Samhita is devoted. Finally, there is still a third principle subdividing the Vedic texts, namely by schools, each having its own recension of a Samhita. It is known either as a Shaka or as a Charana. The most subdivided of the four Vedas is the Yajurveda. First, there is the division between the so called Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda schools. The older black Yajurveda means Krishna Yajurveda, whereas the Shukla Yajurveda has two closely related shakas. The Krishna Yajurveda shows marked differentiation between shakas and their subdivisions or charanas. The Samhita of the Rigveda is known in only one recension but has two subdivisions, Ashvalayana and Shankalayana. The Samaveda boasts two shakas that in fact differ only minimally, the Kautumaranayaniya and Jaiminiya. The Brahmana of the latter is called Jaiminiya Brahmana, and it is known for the richness of its mythical and legendary data. Finally, the Atharva Veda knows that shakas, the Shaunaka and Pippalada. Those scholarly attention has mostly been directed toward the Rigveda and the problems raised by its language, stylistics, and mythological conceptions from the strictly Indian point of view. The main interest of Vedism is in the structure and the development of ritual. This is evident in the internal organization of the Vedic corpus of texts, which has been seen are arranged according to the needs of the Shrauta system of the ritual. The elaboration and standardization of this system are, however, a late Vedic development. The division of mantra and Brahmana is more than a technical ritualistic one. It represents a casualness between, on the one hand, the older state of cult and belief that forms of the background of the Rigveda stanzas, and on the other, standardized system of the ritual that developed in the Brahmanas and was perfected in the Sutras. It is also to be observed that although the standardized ritual draws liberally on the Rigveda as a source of metrical mantras, only part of it is actually used in the ritual. Only the ninth of the 10 books of the Rigveda, which contains the hymns addressed to the god Soma, is directly related to the ritual, namely to the decanting and filtering of the Soma. These hymns were assembled for the purpose of the ritual in a separate collection that was added at a later date to the Rigveda as the ninth of 10 mandalas. Otherwise, the arrangement of the Rig Veda is not related to the later ritual. In general, this text provides few, if any, clear indications about its cultic context or about the occasions at which or for which the hymns were composed. The Rig Veda, then, for all its size and suggestive external contents, does not allow a clear view of Vedic religion, its cult, or its beliefs, nor do the Brahmanas with their single minded concentration on ritual. Non Vedic testimonies, such as the early Buddhist scriptures, may be put to use regarding, for instance, the cult of the spirits, but they will not even be possible to find indubitable evidence linking the Vedic data with the preceding individual civilization. The only source for Vedic religion is the Vedic corpus, but it can only give part of this spectrum. Moreover, one must take into account the sharp divide between the Rig Veda and the Brahmanas. Mythology. As regarding mythology, the Rig Veda is a vast storehouse of mythic motifs that are partly taken up again and recast by the Brahmanas and in their explanation of the ritual. It would be a mistake, however, to expect a consistent mythology or a clearly structural pantheon. Individual outlines tend to be blurred and areas of activity indeterminate, whereas attributes and positions are to some extent interchangeable among the gods. The reason for the apparent interminateness of Rigvedic mythology is not to be found in the fluidity of archaic thought. In fact, the Rigveda bears witness to a highly developed state of verbal art. Though conventional and even formulaic, the model of expression is characterized by great sophistication and flexibility, geared into interchangeability and conflation of images and formulations. The aim is not to arrive at a precise delineation of the deity invoked and his power, but on the contrary, to compress several associations and layers of meaning within the bounded metrical compass of a stranger. In this respect, Rigvedic mythology is essentially different from the mythological statements of the Brahmanas. The Rigvedic works by multi interdependable suggestion and allusion rather than by explicit statement, leaving unexpressed the inner connection of the images and meanings that are suggested or alluded to. In this way, a vast or even unbounded field of symbolic relationship is evoked to enhance the power of the deity. Hence, the indeterminacy of Rigvedic mythology, which is a matter of principle rather than of pristine fluidity. This feature has given rise to Max Muller's well known but misleading term, henotheism or kathenotheism, to characterize Vedic religion. Insofar as it describes the apparent tendency to provide the invoked deity with a maximum of divine also associations to enhance its power, the term may still be useful. It should, however, not to be taken as intermediary stage of the way to some form of strict monotheism, nor can it serve to define Rigvedic religious thought. It does no more than indicate a marked feature of Vedic hymnology. Keeping in mind this caveat as well as the indeterminacy of the Rig Veda and the ritualization of Brahmanas, one may now proceed to a brief survey of Vedic mythology. In accordance with the not specifically Vedic or Indian custom of expressing the idea of totality by a number, the Rig Veda often speaks of 33 gods. The Brahmanas break down this number as 8 Vasus, 11 Rudras, and 12 Adityas, leaving 2 open slots. श्रेयकांताय कल्याण निधे निधेद्राम श्री वेंकटनिवासाय श्रीनिवासाय मंगलम मंगलाशासनपरे मदाचार्य पुरोगमैः सर्वैश्च पूर्वैराचार्य सत्कृतायास्तु मंगलम्.